All right, before I tell you anything more about me, I'd like to tell you something about all of us. Human minds are not built from one blueprint. Neurodiversity describes the natural variance of how human brains develop and process information. Some connect more, sense patterns faster, or get overwhelmed a lot quicker. We're talking about things like having a favorite spoon, craving structure, or actually thriving in chaos. Those are not labels, though. They are not diagnoses. It's just everyday human behavior. It's how we get through the day. So it's very normal. For some people, though, it's just not a preference or a habit. It's the way how their brain works on a fundamental level. And that's when we start talking about neurodivergence and spectrum conditions like autism or ADHD, dyslexia or dyscalculia, and actually some more. These aren't flaws, though. They're engines of creativity. And interestingly enough, two neurodivergent people will never be the same. Yet society expects all of us to run on one default setting, as if there's only one right way to be. Let me give you an example to make it easier to understand, I think. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like everybody else got a script, except you? Like everyone knew exactly where to go, what to do, what to say, and you were just wondering, did I miss rehearsal? For most people, that's a feeling that normally quickly passes and you figure out what everyone else is doing and it's all good. For people like me, though, that's basically what everyday life feels like. And naturally, I've learned how to play everybody else's game, but by doing that, I've missed to learn how to play my own. I'm not the only person, though. You might have heard of these people and characters: Albert Einstein, Greta Thunberg, Sheldon Cooper, or Percy Jackson, if you're into fantasy. They all are, or were, neurodivergent. And their differences weren't obstacles, they were their sparks. And I mean, I would know, because if you haven't made that connection yet, I am neurodivergent. I am autistic, I have ADHD, and all the extras I've mentioned before. And while it can be a handful, it's also an extraordinary way of seeing the world. Because my brain is a collision of opposites. It's ADHD's flood of ideas and autism's sharp focus. I can think expansively and deeply at the same time, and I thrive with purpose. But I do struggle with my routine breaks, so don't cancel on me last minute. I also do not really understand sarcasm. I'm very sensitive when it comes to lights or sound, so these are great, because I would like to look down the whole time, but I'm here with you. I'm also terrible at memorizing texts, which you first thought might be, oh, it's really hard to prepare for today, but the real struggle is karaoke nights, because I can't remember a single song text. And everyone knows what to do, and I'm just vibing along. And something small, or for you small, can actually have a big impact on me. Like, I like to have my seat. And if someone else sits in my seat, for me that feels like the universe tilts off axis, and my day will most definitely be ruined. No question. Growing up, I didn't know any of this, though. I couldn't understand it, really. I just knew that the world felt unbearably loud, confusing, and unforgiving. So I just assumed that I was failing at being human. And as a result of me being me, and not understanding on any of these social clues I should have, I was bullied. "You weird" became the soundtrack of my life. Sometimes as a joke, sometimes as a jab, but always as a reminder that I didn't belong. And when you hear that often enough, you don't just believe you're different. You start thinking you're wrong. And honestly, I just wish that someone would have told me back then already that the things that I struggle with most are actually my greatest strength. That the sensitivity that overwhelms me also fuels my imagination and creativity. My mind is like a kaleidoscope. It's fast, curious, loyal, and fiercely fair. It's the kind of brain that questions the status quo, imagines better systems, fairer rules, and kinder ways of being. So when I talk about a spark, I mean that inner current that makes your mind come alive, your unique rhythm of thought. It's often the things that made you once feel too much or not enough that are actually things that bring out your spark. And trust me when I say our world doesn't need more identical thinkers. Because when everything is on fire, the people who think differently will see the way out first. So I guess what you could say is your spark isn't found in fitting in, it's found in being fully you. Nonetheless, I admit, for years I've learned how to mask and pretend to be like everybody else. I copied how others spoke, behaved, smiled. Years as a cheerleader helped a lot with that. I studied social clues like a foreign language, trying to survive a game designed for someone else. And outwardly, obviously, I succeeded. Inwardly, however, I burned out. And when you mask for long enough, your life becomes a performance. And eventually you have to ask yourself who you are when nobody's watching. That kind of changed, though, when I got my diagnosis in my early 20s. I no longer felt like I'm broken. I felt decoded. And for the first time, the chaos, the zigzag in my head had a language. And I could finally stop apologizing for a brain that was doing its best all along. And I wish wholeheartedly that my story would be unique, but unfortunately it's not. Research shows that autistic women are more likely to be diagnosed years later than men. They're often wrongly diagnosed first with anxiety, depression, or personality disorders. And ADHD and autism, not even considered. Not because we cope better, but because society still expects to see a socially awkward boy when we mention autism, and a hyperactive one when we talk about ADHD. So naturally, girls like me slip through the cracks. They mask harder, and they blame themselves a lot more. And by the time we finally get our answers, we're not just dealing with neurodivergence, we're also dealing with years of burnout, shame, and the feeling that somehow we failed at being normal. I personally was told I'm too much, I'm too loud, I'm too blunt, that I'm thinking too much. And every too much was a reminder to shrink. So I edited myself until I could barely recognize the original draft. But if you think about it, too much thinking is exactly how innovation happens. My mind maps systems, their flaws, their fixes, and the space between what is and what could be. When others panic, I start thriving. Give me the chaos, I love it. My ADHD generates the possibilities. My autism makes sure I actually see them through, but perfectly. Anything else is not acceptable. And that combination makes me an incredible problem solver, a fast thinker, and someone driven by a deep sense of fairness. And yes, I admit, I still struggle with sarcasm. And if you ask me a rhetorical question, you will most definitely get an answer, because I do not understand why you ask a question and not expect an answer. Maybe if you have time, please explain it to me today. I still do not understand. But if you give me a meaningful challenge, I will dismantle problems, I will rebuild systems, and I imagine new structures entirely. And that's the gift of this wiring. We don't just adapt to systems, we rebuild them. So when I eventually understood, I didn't just want to make peace with it. I wanted to start building pathways. I'm an advocate for clearing trails and to ease the burden on those who come after me. And obviously, you can understand that it's a very personal topic. But believe me when I say that I actually never started speaking up for myself. I did it for the people around me. I did it for my grandpa, a brilliant, kind, incredible man who carried shame his entire life, still does, still with us. He couldn't really understand what was going on in his head. So he started believing what everybody else was saying, that he's an idiot. He is no idiot, though. He was a firefighter. He has built houses with his own hands. He has done everything you could ask for. Also, if you need a history lesson, he is literally a walking book. He could tell me more than was in my school books. And he has taught me so many lessons. I still can't express how thankful I am. So when I started speaking up and explaining how my brain works, he could recognize himself in it. And he started understanding that he was never the problem. I also do it for the students coming after me and people entering the same companies as me. I try to pave a way so they won't have to face the same struggles I had to go through. So if my spark can help one person like them, or that one kid in school that heard, "You're weird," every single day, then standing here is already worth it, even though it's kind of scary and very bright. Because I've learned one truth, which I really, really believe in. Similarity won't put out any flames. We need every mind, the fast and the methodical, the bold and the sensitive, the rule followers and the rule breakers. And in a world of fire, neurodivergent sparks don't just survive. They're the ones who notice the smoke first, who see patterns where others only see noise, who sense risks and possibilities way before they become obvious. And those sparks, they aren't just an idea. They aren't just theory. They're people. People sitting in this room. You can look left and right, and there are so many sparks. So this goes out to everyone. If you ever felt too much or not enough, like you're playing a game designed for someone else, I'd like you to remember this one sentence. If you forget everything else, that's okay, one sentence. You're not here to shrink yourself into someone else's definition of normal. You're here because your spark, your creativity, your intensity, your hyperfocus, your zigzag thinking is exactly what this world is missing. So I think it's time we stop fitting people into boxes and we start creating a world that fits and expands all of us. Thanks.